This video is sponsored by Google Pixel 4a. The financial advice in this video reflects my personal opinions only and is not endorsed by Google or any of its affiliates. In the past 3 years, I've made over 100 videos on this channel sharing some of my experiences and things that I've learned thus far in life. And in this video, I want to share with you 8 of the most important and practical lessons that I have learned about money. Whether we like it or not, money plays a crucial role in our livelihoods. It decides what we eat for dinner, how we vacation, and even how we raise our children. So let's get started. So the first lesson is that money is not the end goal in life. Now, I've spoken to dozens of millionaires and I've asked them some of the mistakes that they've made in the past or things that they would have done differently. And one of the biggest things, the thing that kept recurring every time that I asked somebody is they told me that sometimes money would skew their decision-making process a little bit more than what they, in hindsight, would have liked it to do. So this is something that you really do need to understand, because sometimes we put money too high on the list for things that are important to us, and we can make bad decisions. You know, for example, if you're looking at 2 different jobs and one job might pay you 5% more or 10% more, even though you know it's not going to be a very fulfilling job. You're not going to like it, versus a job that maybe pays you a little bit less, but you know it's going to be a fulfilling job. You know that you're very passionate about that job. Many of us still choose that higher paying job, even though it's not as exciting. It's not something that's fulfilling. And so just those little decisions, especially those life decisions, they're important to think about and make sure that you're not letting money affect some of those decisions. Even though it is important, it's also important to make sure that you're having fun and being happy in life. Now, the next lesson that I've learned is something known as the 80-20 principle. And you can use this 80-20 principle and apply it to certain areas of life or certain expenses that traditionally would be large expenses. But if you use this correctly, we can actually end up saving a lot of money. That's why the sponsor for today's video is Google Pixel 4a, the new Google phone. It's available from $349, which is an unheard of price for a premium phone. You can end up saving the bank without sacrificing quality. It's packed with tons of added value, 3 months of YouTube Premium, Google One, and Google Play Pass. That's $56 in added value that comes with the phone, so you can listen to music ad-free. You also get 100 gigabytes for 3 months in storage on Drive, support, and fire up premium games with Play Pass. So personally, I think this is a worthy investment. You've probably experienced a phone with battery life that gets worse over time as you update its software, but Pixel 4a has an all-day battery and your phone will get better over time with feature drops which bring you new features without needing to buy a new phone. So this phone has tons of incredible features, something like top-notch security, the new Google Assistant, but arguably my favorite is the premium camera. So thank you Google Pixel 4a for sponsoring this video. You can buy it on Google Store. I'll leave some links below in the description if you want to learn more about it, and let's continue on with the video. Number 3 is to realize that cash flow can be much more powerful or just as powerful as assets. So let's say that maybe you own 10,000 acres of land. You own a massive plot of forest somewhere in the world. And although this might be worth, say, $2 million, if it's not pulling in any money, it's not making you any money, this actually might end up being a liability. And so you're gonna have to pay taxes on this. You might have to pay for various different expenses for this land. And if it's not bringing in cash, if you're not making money off of something that you own, it can end up actually hurting you quite a bit. You could use this as well, thinking about a house. You own $1 million house, but you have no money coming in. How are you gonna pay your mortgage? How are you going to pay for your water bill? How are you going to pay for your property taxes, right? So just because you have assets doesn't mean that you are raking in the money. It doesn't actually mean that you're wealthy. There's a term that's called house poor, and this actually happens to a lot of people where they buy a house that's too large and they can barely afford it, and they end up not having any money left over because it's all going into the house and they're almost poor in a sense. And that point actually leads us into the 4th lesson that I've learned, which is that your house is not always an asset. Now, if you've read a number of real estate books, maybe you've heard this idea being thrown around that your house might actually be a liability. It does depend how you look at it, but I do like to not treat a house solely as an asset. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is because you can't always count on appreciation of a home value. Now, maybe over a very long period of time, perhaps you can factor that in, but over a span of a decade, assuming that you can buy a house and then sell it for more 3 years later, that might not always be the best route to take. But your house is not necessarily an asset, in my opinion. We can dispute this. Feel free to comment down below on your opinions. But if you have outgoing expenses, if you own a home, look, there's always going to be a cost of putting a roof over your head, regardless of whether you rent or you own a home. And some people actually asked me this just last week because I just moved into my new apartment a couple of weeks ago, and they said, Nate, why are you renting still? Why don't you just buy a house? And it's because there's always a cost of putting a roof over your head. You have property tax, mortgage, insurance. You have a lot of expenses with owning a home, and with an apartment, you don't have those expenses. Now, we can even them out, and we can look at the actual cost of homes, and still, statistically, yes, over the long term, it's still probably better off buying a house than renting. We can talk about that in a separate video, but I just want you to think about that a little bit more, realizing that there's still a cost of putting a roof over your head. If you own your house, you still have a lot of expenses. If you're a homeowner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this next one is arguably my favorite lesson in this video, and it's understanding sales and sales strategy. I suggest reading a few books about this, because if you can understand how people sell to you and the strategies that they use to convince you to buy something, whether this is buying a house, whether this is buying a car at a car dealership, whether this is buying a sofa at your local furniture store, if you can understand the tactics or the strategies that people use to sell you something, you can sort of reverse this on them. I have a good friend of mine whose mother is an incredible saleswoman, and I've seen her do this when she goes somewhere and somebody tries to sell her something, and she'll say, you know what, I'm a salesperson myself. I know this strategy that you're using. Let's actually take this conversation in a different direction, because I know what you're doing. Kind of exposes them sometimes. I have a lot of friends who are salespeople. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, because you want to sell something, right? There's a strategy to selling. But if you understand how they sell, you can end up sometimes getting a better deal if you're really good at negotiating and picking apart sort of the strategy that some people use to sell you things. So get really good at negotiating. Get really understanding of how to sell, and then use it in reverse to get a better deal and a better bargain for yourself. Number 6, pay yourself first. This is a simple idea, but many of us still don't do this. In fact, I actually did a recent poll on one of my social media accounts, and I asked people whether they were paying themselves first. And I had a lot of people who said that they still don't pay themselves first. The best way to do this, and I can't tell you how to manage your money, but a simple strategy that I use for myself is to simply have money come into one checking account or one bank account, and then you have automatic withdrawals that go into a separate account that you save money in, or you invest money, whatever you would like to do with your money. So you have automatic withdrawals going from maybe your checking account to your other account, like your savings account or your investment account, so that you don't have to really think about saving money. It almost automatically does it. And then say that you make $1,000 per week, and so you have automatically $200 per week withdrawn from your checking account, goes into your other bank account. So then you have $800 to work with. You paid yourself first, and now you can think about paying your bills. Now you can think about what you want to use as discretionary income. So don't even treat that extra money or that savings money as discretionary income. Put that towards savings, and then see what you have left over. So pay yourself first. Trust me, it's one of the best things you can do. Discipline leads to freedom. This actually applies to many areas of our lives, but if you can have discipline, we can end up getting freedom at some point. Now, obviously, this is not a paved path that everyone's going to follow. There's going to be issues that arise along the way. But if you are disciplined, it's going to allow you to be more free in most areas. This actually, we can expand this much further than just finances. If you want to become healthier, you need to discipline yourself to eat healthier foods. If you want to have better finances, you need to discipline yourself to be able to say no to certain expenses. And I think in part, sort of becoming a no man or a no person, where you're able to say no to things that maybe you don't want to do, not being susceptible to peer pressure. Maybe if you have something important that you want to do, but other people are pressuring you into doing something else, being able to just say, you know what, no, this is the decision, this is my discipline, and I'm not going to do that activity that maybe I will regret in the future, or I'm not very proud of as a person. And so having that discipline, very important. It takes a lot of time to build up. And I'm going to be honest, I have a lot of problems. I'm not perfect. I'm not totally disciplined. There's things where maybe I go astray a little bit. But for the most part, I do like to try to stay as disciplined as possible with certain areas of life that are important to me. And the final lesson that I want to share with you is it's okay to spend money. I actually spend quite a bit of money. You don't want to be a cheap person. You don't want to be somebody who pinches pennies and doesn't spend anything, because I think everybody has a different philosophy in life. But one of mine is to make sure that I'm very happy and content and feeling good about my lifestyle and the things that I'm doing. And so my goal, if I'm trying to make money, I'm making this money so that I can use it for for something that's important to me, whether this is something that's for myself or for other people or for community or for family or something else. But it's okay to spend money. You don't have to feel like you have to save every penny. And so that's something that, you know, I think a lot of us sometimes do forget, because we talk about saving money all the time. We talk about finances all the time. We think that we just have to squirrel all of our money away, but there's really no point in doing that. I know personally, I'm not taking money to the grave with me. I'm going to use it for certain things that I have and certain visions and ideas that I have in my life. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been saving up and thinking about it and taking it seriously for quite some time. So thank you for watching the video. Thanks for Google Pixel 4a for sponsoring this video. I'll leave some links to them down below, and I'll see everybody in next week's video.